I'm going to tell you something that's going to sound crazy, but hear me out. Last October, when Hurricane Milton hit Florida, and I'm talking about a storm that caused billions in agricultural damage in just 13 days after Helene already devastated the food supply, I realized that everything I thought I knew about being prepared was completely wrong. You know what really shocked me? It wasn't the empty grocery store shelves or the fact that bottled water became impossible to find because damaged water treatment plants left entire communities without clean water. It wasn't even that food prices are expected to jump another 5% in 2025, which means we're looking at a 40% increase in just 5 years. No, what really got me was this. I had a pantry full of food, but I was still hungry. And if you think that can't happen to you, you're making the same mistake I did. Because right now, 1.9 million people are facing catastrophic hunger globally, and that number is growing every single day. The scary part? Most of these people thought they were safe too. So if you want to know the 7 foods that could literally save your family when the next crisis hits, and trust me, there will be a next crisis, you need to watch every second of this video, because what I'm about to share with you could be the difference between surviving and thriving when everything falls apart. Number 7, canned beans and legumes. All right, let's start with number 7. And honestly, this one's going to surprise you because most people completely overlook it. Canned beans and legumes. Now, I know what you're thinking. Beans? Really? That's your big survival food? But listen to this. Right now, 345 million people across 79 countries are facing acute food insecurity. And you know what the biggest problem is? Not enough protein. When crisis hits, everyone rushes for the bread, the pasta, all the carbs, but they forget about protein. And that's a massive mistake. Here's why beans are absolute game changers, and I'm going to break this down for you because this could literally save your life. First off, they're complete proteins when you pair them with rice or any grain, which means you're getting all the essential amino acids your body desperately needs to function. We're not talking about some fancy supplement here. This is real, bioavailable nutrition that your muscles, your brain, everything needs to keep working when the world's falling apart around you. Second, these things have a shelf life that'll outlast most of us. We're talking 2 to 5 years if stored properly in a cool, dry place. And third, they're incredibly filling. 1 can of black beans has about 15 grams of protein and enough fiber to keep you satisfied for hours, not like those empty calories that leave you hungry again in 30 minutes. But here's where it gets really interesting. You know what? Rice and beans literally saved my family when the stores were empty for a week straight after the hurricane. I'm not exaggerating. It became our breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and we actually felt full and energized. My kids weren't cranky, my wife wasn't exhausted, and I could think clearly enough to handle all the chaos that was happening outside. Compare that to my neighbor who stockpiled nothing but crackers and cereal. His family was miserable, weak, and honestly, kind of losing it by day 3. The variety is insane too. You've got black beans, kidney beans, chickpeas, lentils, navy beans. Each one brings different flavors and textures to the table. Chickpeas? You can make hummus with just a fork and some olive oil. Black beans? Perfect for quick burritos or just eating straight from the can. Lentils cook faster than any other bean, and they're packed with iron, which is crucial when you're under stress. And let's talk money for a second because this matters. The best part? A case of canned beans costs less than a single dinner out, but it could feed your family for weeks. We're talking about maybe $50 to get enough beans to last a month, and that's buying the good stuff, not the generic brands. Compare that to what you spend on coffee in a week, and you'll realize how affordable real food security actually is. Here's what I want you to do right now, and I'm serious about this. Grab a pen and write down 3 types of beans you actually like eating. Then this week, when you're at the grocery store, buy a case of each. Don't wait. Don't think about it. Just do it. Because when the next crisis hits, and trust me, there will be a next crisis, you'll thank me for pushing you to stock up on the one food that'll keep your family strong, healthy, and ready for whatever comes next. Number 6. Peanut butter. Okay, I'm going to be real with you here. Peanut butter saved my life during the crisis, and I'm not being dramatic. You know what's crazy? Before everything went sideways, I used to think peanut butter was just something you threw in your kid's lunchbox, right? Boy, was I wrong. When the power went out for 8 straight days, and the stores were either closed or completely cleaned out, this humble jar sitting in my pantry became the most valuable thing I owned. Here's the thing about peanut butter that most people don't realize. We're talking about 588 calories in just 100 grams. That's not just food, that's fuel. And when you're stressed out of your mind, trying to figure out how to feed your family with whatever's left in your kitchen, those calories become everything. With inflation and grocery prices staying high, and food shortages continuing to hit staples like eggs, wheat, and other basics, you need something that gives you maximum nutrition for your dollar. Peanut butter delivers protein, healthy fats, and enough calories to keep you going when everything else runs out. But here's what really blew my mind. It doesn't need refrigeration. Think about that for a second. Your milk goes bad, your meat spoils, your leftovers turn into science experiments, but that jar of peanut butter, it's sitting there, totally fine, ready to feed you. During those 8 days without power, I watched my neighbors throwing away hundreds of dollars worth of spoiled food while I was eating peanut butter straight from the jar. Honestly, it became breakfast, lunch, and sometimes dinner. And you know what? I wasn't complaining. The versatility is insane too. You can eat it straight, which, let's be honest, I did more times than I care to admit. You can spread it on crackers if you've got them. Mix it with some oats and dried fruit, and suddenly you've got a meal that actually tastes good. I even mixed it with water to make a protein drink when I was feeling weak from not eating enough. Sounds gross? Maybe, but when you're hungry and your energy is crashing, you'll try anything that works. And here's something that really hit me during that crisis: the psychological comfort factor. When everything around you is chaos, when you don't know when the power's coming back or when the stores will restock, there's something deeply reassuring about opening that familiar jar. It smells like normal. It tastes like home. When your kids are scared and asking when things will go back to normal, you can hand them a spoon with peanut butter on it, and for just a moment, everything feels okay again. The shelf life is another game changer. We're talking about 2 to 3 years if it's unopened, and even after you crack it open, it'll last months. Compare that to fresh meat or dairy, and you start to understand why this belongs at the top of your crisis food list. Look, I get it. You're probably thinking, it's just peanut butter. How important can it be? Trust me, I thought the same thing. But when push comes to shove, when the supply chains break down and we're facing continued food shortages and rising prices, you'll understand exactly why this simple jar became my lifeline. Don't make the mistake I almost made. Get several jars now, before you need them. Number 5. Dried fruits and nuts. Okay, let me tell you about dried fruits and nuts, because honestly, this one's going to surprise you. Most people think of these as snacks, right? Like something you grab at the gas station or throw in your kid's lunchbox. But during the crisis, these little powerhouses became absolute lifesavers. And I'm not even exaggerating here. You know what's happening right now? Fresh produce shortages are becoming a real problem, especially with farms depending on migrant labor for picking and packing, and that workforce is seriously under threat. Climate change is hitting our agricultural systems hard, and guess what that means for you and me? Fresh fruits and vegetables are becoming more expensive and harder to find. But here's the thing. Dried fruits and nuts don't care about any of that. They're sitting pretty in your pantry, ready to go whenever you need them. Let me paint you a picture of what it was really like. Day 3 without power, no fresh food left in the house, and my kids are looking at me like I've failed as a parent. That's when I remembered this bag of mixed dried fruits and nuts I'd bought months earlier and honestly forgot about. I opened that bag, and you should have seen their faces light up. When you haven't had anything sweet in days, dried fruit feels like candy. And I mean that literally. My 8-year-old daughter said the dried mango tasted better than ice cream. That's when I realized these weren't just snacks anymore. They were morale boosters. But here's what really blew my mind: the nutritional punch these things pack. Almonds give you healthy fats and protein that keep you feeling full for hours. Walnuts have those omega-3s. Your brain needs to think clearly during stressful times. Dried apricots, loaded with vitamin A and potassium. Raisins provide quick energy when you're running on fumes. And cashews, man, cashews became like little pieces of heaven because they're creamy and satisfying in a way that actually makes you feel like you've eaten something substantial. The genius of dried fruits and nuts is they solve multiple problems at once. You're getting vitamins when fresh produce isn't available. You're getting energy that lasts, not just a sugar rush that crashes in 20 minutes. And honestly, they're giving you that psychological boost you desperately need when everything feels like it's falling apart. There's something about the natural sweetness and the satisfying crunch that makes your brain think everything's going to be okay. Here's my pro tip. Don't just buy one kind. Get variety. Mix it up. Dried cranberries, almonds, pecans, dried pineapple, cashews, whatever you can find. Because when you're stressed and scared and hungry, having options makes all the difference in the world. And you know what? They last forever. We're talking months, even years if you store them right. No refrigeration needed, no cooking required, no preparation time. The best part? While everyone else is fighting over the last bag of fresh apples at the grocery store, you're sitting pretty with a stash that's actually more nutrient-dense than most fresh fruit anyway. Smart, right? This isn't just about survival. This is about thriving when everyone else is struggling. Number 4. Instant oats. All right, let's talk about number 4 on my list. And honestly, this one's gonna surprise you, because it surprised the hell out of me. Instant oats. I know. You're probably thinking, really? Oats? That's your big survival food? But listen, when I tell you what happened during those 8 days without power, you're gonna understand why this humble breakfast staple became my absolute lifeline. Here's the thing that most people don't realize. Wheat shortages from the Ukraine conflict are still wreaking havoc on bread products, and that's not going away anytime soon. You know what that means? All those fancy survival foods that depend on wheat flour, all those bread recipes you've been saving for emergency situations, all those pasta dishes you thought would keep you going. They're either going to be crazy expensive or just flat out unavailable when you need them most. But oats are different. They're hearty, they're grown in different regions, and they're not caught up in the same supply chain disasters that are crushing wheat production. But here's where it gets really interesting, and this is something I learned the hard way. When you're dealing with a crisis, whether it's a hurricane, power outage, or whatever nightmare scenario life throws at you, your body craves comfort just as much as it craves calories. And guess what? This became my go-to comfort food. I'm not even kidding. Day 3 of no electricity, when I was tired of cold canned food and my kids were starting to complain about everything tasting weird, I made a simple bowl of oats with just hot water from our camp stove, and suddenly everything felt a little bit more normal. The versatility of instant oats is absolutely insane, and I wish someone had told me this before the crisis hit. You can make them with just hot water. No milk needed, no fancy ingredients, nothing. But here's the genius part. You can turn them into completely different meals, depending on what you have on hand. Got some honey? Boom, you've got dessert. Have a can of fruit? Mix it in, and suddenly you've got vitamins and natural sugars. Found some nuts in your pantry? Throw them in for protein and healthy fats. Honestly, we made oat cookies by mixing them with a little peanut butter and letting them set. My kids thought it was the best thing ever. And let's talk about the practical stuff for a second. 1 container of instant oats takes up barely any space in your pantry, but it'll feed your family for days. They cook in literally 2 minutes with hot water, so you're not burning through your fuel supplies trying to prepare a meal. They're filling, really filling, because of all that fiber, so you're not constantly thinking about food when you need to focus on other survival priorities. Plus, they're dirt cheap compared to those fancy freeze-dried survival meals that cost $50 for a week's worth of food. But you know what really sold me on oats? They kept my blood sugar stable during the most stressful week of my life. When everything around you is chaos, when you're worried about your family and your house, and whether the power's ever coming back on, the last thing you need is to be hangry on top of everything else. Oats give you that slow, steady energy that keeps you thinking clearly instead of crashing every few hours like you would with sugary snacks. Number 3. Canned fish, tuna salmon. All right, let's talk about number 3 on my list. And honestly, this one's going to surprise you because most people completely overlook it. Canned fish, specifically tuna and salmon. And I'm telling you right now, this stuff literally became liquid gold during the crisis. You know, before Helene and Milton hit, I never really thought about how fragile our seafood supply actually is. I mean, you go to the store, there's always fish, right? Wrong. These hurricanes completely upended a key part of the nation's food supply, battering 6 states and causing billions of dollars in losses to crops, livestock, and aquaculture. I'm talking about shrimp farms wiped out, fishing operations destroyed, entire coastal food production just gone. But here's the thing that really opened my eyes, and this is where canned fish becomes absolutely crucial. When Jason Madison, a commercial shrimp farmer for 23 years, came back to his place after Helene, everything was destroyed. The 20-foot storm surge had torn apart his shrimp storefront, and all 5 tanks where he stored live shrimp were completely gone. Think about that for a second. 23 years of building a business wiped out in one night, and that's happening all across the Southeast right now. So why does this matter to you? Because when fresh seafood becomes impossible to get, and trust me, it will, canned fish becomes your nutritional lifeline. We're talking about high-quality protein that doesn't need refrigeration, doesn't spoil, and honestly, packs more nutrition per ounce than most people realize. The omega-3 fatty acids alone are incredible for your brain function and heart health. And when you're dealing with the stress of a crisis situation, your body desperately needs those nutrients. But here's what I learned the hard way. You don't realize how much your body craves real nutrition until you've been eating nothing but crackers and peanut butter for 5 days straight. I remember opening that first can of salmon on day 6 of the power outage, and it was like my whole system just said, thank you. The protein hit different, you know? It actually filled me up and gave me energy instead of just stopping the hunger for an hour. And let's be real about something else. The shelf life on this stuff is insane. We're talking 2 to 5 years if stored properly. Compare that to fresh fish that goes bad in your fridge after 2 days without power, and you start to see why this needs to be in your emergency stash. Plus, and this is huge, you can eat it straight from the can. No cooking, no preparation, no fuel needed. When you're trying to conserve your resources, that's everything. The other thing that shocked me was the versatility. Mix it with some rice, throw it on crackers, make a quick fish salad. Suddenly, you've got actual meals instead of just surviving on snacks. And honestly, when you're in survival mode, having food that actually tastes good and feels like a real meal, that's not just nutrition, that's mental health. Because when everything else is falling apart around you, at least you know you're feeding your family something that's actually good for them. Number 2, coconut oil. All right, number 2 on my list is going to surprise some of you, but stick with me here because this one literally saved my family during the worst of it. Coconut oil. I know. You're probably thinking, coconut oil? Really? That's your big survival food? But let me tell you why this stuff became more valuable than gold in my house when everything went sideways. First off, we're looking at serious vegetable oil shortages continuing into 2025, with production issues hitting major oil-producing regions hard. Canada had terrible canola crop yields, South America got slammed by drought affecting soybean production, and Indonesia, the world's biggest palm oil producer, basically said, nope, we're keeping our oil for ourselves and limited exports. So while everyone's fighting over the last bottle of olive oil at the grocery store, guess what? Coconut oil is still sitting there on the shelf because most people don't understand what they're looking at. Here's the thing. When the power went out for 8 days straight, I couldn't use my electric stove, my microwave, nothing. But coconut oil? This stuff doesn't care if you have electricity or not. You can literally eat it straight from the jar if you have to, and your body will thank you for it. We're talking about pure, immediate energy here. Each tablespoon packs about 120 calories of straight fuel, And when you're rationing food and your stomach is growling, those calories hit different. You know what I mean? But it's not just about the calories. Though honestly, when you're stressed out of your mind and burning through energy trying to figure out how to keep your family safe, you need every calorie you can get. Coconut oil has these things called medium-chain triglycerides, and your body processes them differently than other fats. They go straight to your liver and get converted to energy almost immediately. It's like having a backup generator for your body. And here's where it gets really interesting. This stuff literally kept my family's energy up when we had no power for cooking. My wife was getting weak, the kids were cranky from hunger, and I was starting to panic. I remembered reading somewhere that coconut oil could help with energy, so I started giving everyone a spoonful in the morning with whatever food we had. Within an hour, it was like someone flipped a switch. Everyone perked up, the brain fog cleared, and we could actually think straight enough to make good decisions. But wait, there's more. You can cook with it, obviously. It has a high smoke point, so it's perfect for frying up whatever protein you can find. You can use it as a natural antibiotic if someone gets a cut. And trust me, when hospitals are overwhelmed and you can't get to a doctor, having something that can prevent infection is huge. My neighbor actually used it to treat a nasty scrape on his arm, and it healed up clean as a whistle. The medicinal uses alone make this worth stocking up on. Digestive issues? Coconut oil can help. Skin problems from stress and poor hygiene conditions? Coconut oil. Even oral health. You can do oil pulling to kill bacteria in your mouth when you can't get to a dentist. Look, I'm not saying coconut oil is magic, but when everything else fails, this stuff just works. It doesn't spoil easily, it doesn't need refrigeration, and it solves multiple problems at once. That's what you want in a crisis. Foods that pull double or triple duty. Number 1. Water purification tablets. All right, let's talk about number 1 on my list. And honestly, this might surprise you because it's not technically food, but water purification tablets saved my life. And here's why they should be at the top of your survival list too. You know what the biggest wake-up call was during the last crisis? It wasn't running out of bread or milk or even meat. It was when I turned on my kitchen faucet and nothing came out. Nothing. And that's when it hit me. You can survive weeks without food, but you've got maybe 3 days without water before your body starts shutting down. When Hurricane Helene tore through the southeast, it didn't just knock down trees and flood homes. It completely destroyed water treatment plants and damaged water lines, leaving entire communities without access to clean, safe drinking water. We're talking about millions of people who went from turning a handle and getting crystal clear water to suddenly having no water at all. And guess what happened next? Bottled water disappeared from every store shelf within hours. I mean, completely gone. People were driving 3 hours to the next county just to find a case of water bottles, and when they did find them, they were paying 5 times the normal price. But here's the thing that really opened my eyes. Even when you find water sources during a crisis, you can't just drink them. That pond behind your house could be contaminated with runoff from damaged septic systems. That stream you used to play in as a kid might be carrying bacteria that'll put you in the hospital. The rainwater you're collecting in buckets, without proper treatment, it could contain pollutants that'll make you sicker than you already are from the stress of the situation. This is where water purification tablets become your best friend. I'm talking about these tiny, lightweight tablets that can turn sketchy water into something safe to drink. Each tablet can purify about 1 liter of water, killing bacteria, viruses, and parasites that could literally kill you. And the best part? A bottle of 50 tablets costs about the same as a fancy coffee drink, but it can provide you with clean drinking water for weeks. Think about that math for a second. 1 coffee versus weeks of survival. During the crisis, I watched neighbors getting sick from drinking water they thought was safe. I saw families rationing their last few bottles of water while their kids were crying from thirst. But you know what I was doing? I was walking down to the creek with my water purification tablets, filling up every container I had, and my family had all the clean water we needed. The biggest shock? Water became more valuable than gold. I had neighbors offering me cash, food, even tools from their garage, just for a few bottles of clean water. Here's what you need to do right now. Go buy at least 2 bottles of water purification tablets. Keep one in your emergency kit at home and one in your car. Because when the next crisis hits, and it will hit, you don't want to be the person begging for water. You want to be the person who's prepared, who's got their family covered, and who can even help their neighbors if needed. Trust me on this one. Water purification tablets aren't just a good idea, they're absolutely essential for survival. Look, I'm not trying to scare you, but the data doesn't lie. And what I'm about to tell you should make every single person watching this video take action today. Right now, 1.9 million people are in catastrophic hunger. That's people who are literally on the brink of starvation, and here's the kicker. Humanitarian funding that helps these people could be cut by up to 45% in 2025. That means less help is coming when more people need it. But it gets worse. Food price inflation is expected to jump nearly 5% in 2025, which brings us to a staggering 40% increase over just 5 years. Think about that for a second. The food you're buying today will cost 40% more in just a few years, and that's if it's even available. We're not talking about some distant future here. We're talking about next year, next month, maybe next week. The supply chains are more fragile than ever, the climate is getting more unpredictable, and the global economy is hanging by a thread. Every expert I've talked to says the same thing. It's not a matter of if the next crisis hits, it's when. Here's what you need to do right now. Start with just one item from this list this week, seriously. Pick one and buy it today. Which of these 7 foods do you already have? Comment below because I want to know how prepared you really are. Hit that subscribe button if this video opened your eyes like it did mine. And honestly, if you want to see the 3 massive mistakes I made that almost cost my family everything during the last crisis, check out my next video. The link's right there, and trust me, you don't want to make